This is Frank Jofo for Jofo in the Ring, and we would like to take this opportunity to share with you our sponsor, Balboa Bakery. If you're in the mood for fresh baked focaccia, an array of sliced cold cuts and cannolis to die for, and of course, the finest Italian products known to man, look no further than Balboa Bakery. Go the distance with Balboa Bakery. Located at 102 Saint Jean-Baptiste Boulevard, Local 52 in Chateauguay. Here we go!
Am I doing this by myself? Where the fuck's Frank?
I haven't heard from him all day.
I'm gonna call him. Hang on. It's ringing for once.
Hello, Kyle.
Yo!
What's going on, buddy?
Yeah, we're waiting on you. Where the fuck are you?
Yeah, I'm back on the boat.
Hey, you're back on the boat.
I'm working.
Again? I thought it was...
Figure something out.
Yeah, alright.
You know who to call.
No, it's fine, yeah. Alright, whatever. Alright, I'll see you when you get back. Have a good trip. Later.
Bye, buddy.
He's gone. He's on the boat. Hang on, I got an idea. I'm gonna make a call. Hey. Yeah. Alright, I need your help. Alright, cool. Thanks. Oh, dude, thank you so much.
Hey,
You're a
look,
fucking
look, save your thanks. Okay, just be glad I'm here doing a free interview. You know, I usually charge quite a premium for this kind of thing. And why are you wearing a belt?
Because I'm the champ.
The champ of what?
I'm the spoiler champ.
No, you're just making yourself look like a mark, okay? I got to bring some professionalism here. I expect a certain environment, and I'm not going to have some guy that I chopped in the chest when realistically I should have chopped him upside the head to get his brain working so he can get his co-host here, so I don't have to come here on a day off to do something that you couldn't do yourself. So please, don't insult me, the wrestling fans, the credibility behind that title. Bret Hart held that title, okay? You know, and not some guy like you. So put that aside and let me show you how it's done. Okay, Kyle? We good?
All right.
Now I gotta pretend to be a nice guy when the cameras go on, so don't get me all flustered. Let's do this thing.
All right. Do I have to call you Mr. Prophet?
It'd be in your best interest.
Even on air?
No, on air, I'm a nice guy.
So Jeremy's fine?
Yeah, just not now.
I just can't look you in the eye.
Mr. Prophet, off air?
No eye contact.
Jeremy, when we're on the air.
Okay.
You get it? You get it?
Yep.
This is Mr. Prophet.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
This is Jeremy.
Oh, all right.
No, that's me on the air.
Okay. Sorry. All right. Let's start the show. Hey, guys. Welcome to Jofo in the Ring. If you're wondering why Frank Jofo isn't in his usual seat, he's on a boat. Surprise, surprise. But I made a phone call, and I found the biggest, the best, the only man who could fill that seat. Ladies and gentlemen, Black Dynamite, Jeremy Prophet.
Now that is a pretty good introduction. I tell you, that's why I like you, Kyle, because you recognize talent.
Welcome to the show,
You know
man.
what's up.
Yeah.
And what a great show we have today. You know, we're going to be doing an interview with one of the best of the best. And as a bonus, he's bringing on his new fiancée. That's right, folks at home. I am talking about none other than Speedball Mike Bailey and Veda Scott.
Jesus Christ, I'm excited. Let's get it going. Let's start the show.
All right.
Edition of Jofo in the Ring. And yes, I am not Frank Jofo. I am Kyle the Spoiler Morin. And this handsome gentleman to the side of me, Black Dynamite, Jeremy Prophet. Welcome back to the show, sir.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Glad to be joined by yourself. And we have some other special guests with us right now. Two people that I think the world of. One I've known for a very long time. One I've known not too long, but looking forward to getting to know here in this interview, amongst other things. So without further ado, we have Speedball Mike Bailey, joined by Veda Scott. How you guys doing today?
Welcome to the show.
Hello. So you did warn us about the here we go and that you wouldn't be able to do it on screen. I can see why. It was worth it. Whoever did that does a hell of a job.
Right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
That's why we pay him the big bucks.
And that's why we keep it going. I actually owe him $10 for doing it.
Okay, very good. Worth it.
Good. So, as I can see, you guys are enjoying your quarantine time right now. And was wondering, Veda, for you, how are you enjoying Canada so far?
Well, I mean, literally, I've been in like 3 rooms for, what is it, day 11 today?
Day 11.
Oh my
No.
God. No, it's day, they gave me an app I have to check into every day. It'll tell me what
Okay,
day
let's
I'm on,
look it up.
because time is nothing right now. Yeah, I'm on day 11. It's boring. I mean, we're filling the time. And it's great, and I'm happy to be here with you. But I am used to being like, even during the pandemic, I've had to work the whole time, so I've been very busy, and this is different for me.
So, with it being day 11, that means you got, 3 more days of being locked up, and then you're allowed to go out into the world? Is that how it works?
But like to do nothing, but they can leave the house. I can like walk around the block safely.
You can go to the mall.
I can't go to the mall.
Yep,
Yes,
there's free parking downtown, so that's even easier.
Yeah, no kidding. Are you allowed to just like go to the back door and open it up and just stand there and get some fresh air?
You're allowed to you can go stand on like your own balcony or like your own patio. Presumably you could go into your own like garden, I guess. But they're pretty clear on that you can't go anywhere, but you could like go on your own patio, balcony.
And I guess while you're outside, they can't have you like coughing into the wind or anything.
I mean, so they're able to call and check in on you. I've gotten one call so far, but it was like a pre-recorded message reminding me to not leave the house. Was this not even? I don't even know.
I don't know.
But yeah, so they can call and check up, and so far they haven't really, but maybe we'll see.
But nonetheless, I mean, this has got to be a great experience because the two of you are together. I know for a fact, having spent tons of time with Bailey, that he missed the hell out of you, and I'm sure it was mutual on your end. So even though you don't really get to go many places, at least you're with the one you love.
What was this better when it wasn't plugged in? Sorry.
No, I just need to turn the volume up.
I guess you didn't hear me.
No, I didn't. No, we did hear. We heard you at the very end of it.
So what I had said is that even though you can't go out, really go anywhere, at least you're with the one you love. So that's got to be great.
So that is great. We spent 9 months apart.
Almost 10 months.
Almost 10 months, which was awful.
Terrible.
At least it's not so bad because we do our schedule for the last several years has been a lot of traveling for wrestling, and the rest of the time I'll be either in Canada or Japan. If we're not there together, she'll be in the US, and so we'll be apart for months at a time. Yeah, so we've kind of learned to have a long distance relationship because there's like a learning process to that. That's kind of a thing you have to get good at. So thankfully during the 9 months that we had a thing, we knew how to be, we knew how to have a relationship. But I can't imagine, there's been so many couples that were separated for that long time period with no way to see each other.
Right. And we were lucky. Yeah, we were lucky that it wasn't it was a sudden thing. This specific circumstance was not one that we anticipated, but we had for years we've had to go a month or 2 or 3 months without seeing each other. So we were kind of used to that. So I guess we were lucky in that respect.
Now, having us go back in time a little bit here, how long have you two been together, or when did you first meet? Maybe we could start there.
We're not sure. Should I say this?
Yeah.
Okay. We're not sure. Because wrestling is how wrestling is. We've known each other for a really long time, and we've been friends for a really long time. We've backtracked this with people before. We're not really sure where we met exactly. We know it was at a wrestling show, and we think it was probably the old CZW and WSU, which is a women's wrestling promotion in the States, or was, used to do these double header shows where like WSU would run in the afternoon and then CZW would run at night, and they'd be all in the same venue. So he used to do the CZW shows back in the States. So this was at least 5 years ago. He used to do the CZW shows, and I always did the WSU shows. So we were in the same like locker room area for that. So we figure that's probably where we met for the first time. But there was a period of time where we were on shows together in the States. And then of course subsequently we've been on lots of shows together in Canada. But we think it's, I don't know, 6 years, 5 years. It's hard,
Yeah,
hard to
if
say.
we're gonna give like an official date, I guess we would probably say for 4 years ago, 3 years ago, first trip to England.
3
years
Yeah.
ago. Yeah, when we Veda always sounds weird. Had come up to Canada a couple times, and we decided that like she wanted to travel more for wrestling. I was planning to stay in England for a long time, and we decided, okay, let's pool our resources together. Let's join up all the connections, and let's have a go at spending. I think it was 2 months the first time, just
It was
in
2
England,
months. Yep.
finding our own bookings. And I guess like those 2 months we spent together there were the first like actual like more than just a few days that we
Yeah.
had spent together.
Okay, good. Now, I'm sure half of our audience probably knows a bit more about one of you than the other, so wouldn't mind asking you individually to tell us about their careers. Considering that we're based out of Montreal here, there's probably a lot more that know about you, Emil, or Mike. It feels so weird calling you Mike, but...
You can just call me Emil.
I've never called you Mike, and sometimes people will ask where like Mike is, and I don't respond to that at all.
I mean, because to me, you've always been Emil.
Yes.
Or Speedball now. That seems a little bit more normal than calling you Mike. But anyways, I'm sure more of our audience, just because of where we're based, know more about you. So I'd like to kind of shine some light on Veda. We know that she's been doing this quite a while as well, and been a lot of places, done a lot of things, met a lot of people. So Veda, how did you start out in wrestling?
I was in law school already. In Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in the States. And so when I decided that I wanted to go to wrestling school, I was kind of limited with what my choices would be, because I obviously was not going to drop out of law school to pursue wrestling, when my goal was to like get through training and have fun with that, and then have a match, and then probably move on with my life. Which is not what happened at all, but that was the plan. So because I was already in school someplace, I was kind of locked in, and I had friends who were wrestlers, and Philadelphia was at the time in particular an area where there were like 3 or 4 pretty reputable schools within the area. So I signed up to wrestling school, and I used to go after I was done with class for the day. I would go and train. So that's how I got into wrestling. I just decided I was a fan my whole life, and I decided that I wanted to train, do a match, and be around it more. And I started training while I was in law school, so I was kind of like locked into where I was. And I started training with Ring of Honor. Had a school up near Philly at the time. It's in Baltimore now. It's moved, which is in Maryland, so it's further down in the States. But it was in the Philadelphia area. It was like 45 minutes out of the city on the train, and I would just go and train there. And that was the school that I picked for myself. It was what felt best for me. I think I made the right choice. I don't know, but anyway. But because of that, because it was the ROH school, at the time they didn't have, it was a smaller production. Like they were just getting back onto TV.
Now, what year were we talking about? Just for the audience.
Like 2013, 12, something like that. So it was a much smaller production than it is today. So at the time, ROH like didn't have a full scale like crew or production crew, and the students did a lot of the ring crew work. Even though we were touring around the country, it was still mostly the students that would do the work. So I was lucky, because I was an ROH student, that I was able to, do all the setting up and everything and travel around with that. So I was really fortunate that I traveled a lot when I was still just training, because of the ROH connection, because we ran shows all around the country. And then I would have to go to those shows and travel in the truck or travel in the van and help out. So it ended up working out really well for me, because in that time period, while I was training, I met a lot of people because I was traveling around everywhere. So when it came time for me to start wrestling, and again, ROH at the time didn't have a women's division. They were sort of like on pause with that. And I didn't anticipate ever working for them because I didn't think there'd be a space that I could fill. I just trained there. But when it came time for me to start wrestling and like have my one match, which my first match was against my trainer, who's Daisy Hayes, I figured like maybe that'd be it. Except because of all the traveling that I had done for Ring of Honor, I knew I wanted to stay at least like working something in wrestling, but I wasn't sure what. And as I traveled around and did crew with all these different people, I met them. And then when they saw that I was about to have a match or start wrestling, they were like, well, like we could really use someone on this show in Ohio, or like, well, we have a show coming up in Tennessee, and we only have one woman in our school and we'd really like to do a women's match. You want to come down and do that? And so in the beginning, a lot of my networking was through that, was just, meeting people and then like trying to build that. So it wasn't just one match, it was a lot of matches. But that's kind of how I got started, was training in Philly and then doing ring crew and traveling around and meeting people.
So you mentioned earlier, ROH not really having a women's division. Was there a difference that you noticed between the independent women's scene before and after the women's revolution?
So like I said, I've been a wrestling fan always, and women's wrestling in the States has changed a lot, like you said, especially independent wrestling, because there's just so many women out there right now who are good. And there was a time period in the like early 2000s when the scene wasn't as populated, and so the people who were good were excellent and still are excellent. Or like when you go back and watch the matches, they're excellent, but there just wasn't like as many people doing it, and as maybe not as many opportunities out there. So going into it, I wasn't really sure like what direction I wanted to go. I kind of was like, it was at the time where like women, American women were the English wrestling, like the British wrestling scene wasn't built up the way it was when I started. That happened subsequently. But I was like, I'd really like to wrestle in Japan. And I didn't really see myself in America all that much as a wrestler. But in the time since I started wrestling, the scene has built up so much. I don't know that you can trace it directly back to like WWE influence, or just from a number of things, including the fact that it's just easier to share wrestling now. There's streaming services. You don't have to, I grew up trading tapes. Like you don't have to do that anymore. Even like buying DVDs isn't really like a thing that you have to do anymore. It's easier to share content, be it on YouTube or a streaming service. So people are out there a lot more. And it seems like there's a lot more wrestling because there is. It's not as rare to see. So I think that maybe had something to do with it too. But of course, obviously, like seeing more and more women on television doing wrestling in an exceptional way, I think also again, like motivates more people. There's so many women right now who are either top level independent wrestlers or people who have been signed recently. And if you ask them, like, what was like your genesis of loving pro wrestling and made you want to do it? And they say Bayley and Sasha at TakeOver. And that's crazy to me because that would just happen in my like timeline of events as someone who's been a wrestling fan my whole life. But it's incredible to see that that's what motivated some people to start training, some women to start training, and men, I'm sure too. So it's what motivated some people to start training who are now like moving up the ranks and getting at a higher level. And that's something that's relatively recent. Like these are still contemporaries. And I think that's really cool too, that it's not like the distant past, it's the recent past.
And now, one of the things that you also mentioned that definitely catches my attention every time I hear it is your law career. And I wonder, do you still practice law, or is that something that's kind of taken? No?
No.
But you've already passed the bar and all that, right?
No, so the thing was with me, I had intended to, pursue One Direction. I'm not actually 100% sure how it breaks down here in Canada, but in the States, you go to university for 4 years and do whatever you're going to do. And then law school is a postgraduate thing. It's separate. It's not like all one track. So I went to university for 4 years.
So in Canada, it's pretty much the same, except a lot less expensive.
Well said.
I'm in so much debt, which he knows.
Stay on this side of the border.
But at least you
Yeah.
got great health care.
Hell yeah.
I have nothing. But so yeah, so I went to college. I went to university for one thing, thinking that I would transition into a PhD program. I took some time off after I graduated, and I started working in television production just to try something different. And it was in working in television production and interacting with a lot of lawyers that I decided, actually, rather than pursue my PhD right now, I wanted to go to law school. So I got into law school, and that was like a completely separate thing from what I had been doing. And my thought was like, okay, this is now what I do. Like, I'm going to be a lawyer or something lawyer adjacent. And instead, while I was already in law school, I found pro wrestling, and then I transitioned to trying to do pro wrestling full time. So I just kind of have moved from one
Now,
thing
you mentioned
to another.
You mentioned TV production, and we've seen those skills used by you. From what I remember, I think in Ring of Honor they had used you as an interviewer at one point, or an on-screen character. And most recently, we saw on AEW Dark, you were used as a commentator. To put it bluntly, I mean, is that more the direction you see yourself going in for the foreseeable future in wrestling, commentary, interviewing, that type of role?
Yeah, I think so. So when I started doing the interview stuff with Ring of Honor, it was I was wrestling at the time, but I was very, very new. And again, I had not seen myself as someone who would ever work for ROH because it didn't make sense. Like there wasn't a role for me, and I didn't think there ever would be. And it was Ring of Honor. Like that was way far beyond like my goals for myself, which were none. And but I really enjoyed doing promos, and I would try to film promos for all my matches and put them on the internet. And because I was constantly shooting promos and like filming stuff around the school and constantly practicing with promos and putting them on the internet, there was an idea that maybe they would reintroduce like an interviewer character, because it's a good way for other people to do promos. It's a good device to sort of push the stories along. And that maybe I could do that, because at least I'm not, they knew that I wasn't like afraid to speak on a microphone. So that's kind of how I got into that. And I hadn't thought that that was not like a path that I saw myself going, was doing the interviewing. But it ended up being really helpful because it helped me work on my timing and my pacing. And it got me, like I said, comfortable with a microphone. And then through that, I eventually transitioned into being a manager for ROH, which meant I was constantly talking, and I constantly had to do promos, live ones, taped ones, everything like that. And during that time, just as like sort of like background color, I would start doing commentary sometimes. And that was something that I loved and I wanted to do more of. So I started to, on indie shows, ask to do more and more commentary. And I would put on the headset here and there for ROH until finally I was doing like whole chunks of shows, and I loved it. But I never saw it as like a career option or like a way that I could actually transition until recently. And now I do think that that's kind of the direction that I want to go, because it's where I have the most fun, I think.
I would even go as far as to say, in your case, that you bring something to the table that most women who we do kind of see in commentary don't have, in that you've been in the ring, you've taken bumps, you've done matches, you've managed, you've done many aspects of what we see in professional wrestling. So that gives you the ability to break it down from a first-hand point of view. And I think that when it comes to whoever the competition may be out there, they wouldn't really have those same tools. I mean, they might be a pretty face in front of a mic, but they've not actually gone through the life experience of setting up a ring before the show, paying one's dues, and then being able to put that into perspective for the common viewer. People like Kyle over here, who's never taken a bump in his life.
I've taken a chop.
Yeah, that was from me.
Well,
I know.
The part that I'm learning right now is the actual like announcing, broadcasting aspect of it, because I don't have, so a lot of people who get into commentary have a background in sports broadcasting, or especially here up in Canada, like presenting, which is less of a thing in the States, but presenting like on a sports show, or even like sideline reporting, like that's the background they have. So they understand that aspect of it. And that's the part that like I'm learning in terms of like doing it professionally and not just like kind of figuring it out as I go along, like having someone teach me and guide me, because there are particulars, the same as wrestling, that you have to learn, and like conventions that you have to learn and rules that you have to follow. So that's the part that I'm kind of learning now, because I don't have the background in that. My TV background was in producing, so it was all behind the scenes.
And a lot of that probably comes on the job as you're doing the broadcast.
Yes.
I think of like when you're doing Dark, and the many times where Taz will say, "Oh, who's he? Who's she?" Is that maybe a kind of like a thing that they stress behind the scenes?
It's more of a WWE thing. There the rules of announcing there are pretty strict, and there's a lot of like conventions and things that they like to be followed, and so that's very much a WWE very much a WWE thing, that I am learning and have to learn. Like the whole pronoun antecedent thing is very important, but it makes for a better broadcast, and it's something that, again, like it's one of those like on the job like things, and because it's Taz, he will push it right there and like force me to learn it, and it's honestly the most helpful way to learn anything.
See, I know Taz gets a bit of flack on the internet. Some people, he's not their cup of tea when it comes to commentary. But I enjoy Taz, and I enjoy how he started off as this killer in ECW, and now he's kind of transitioned into being this like Rudy Giuliani meets George Costanza kind of funny guy on commentary. And I got to ask you, what is it like working with Taz?
He's also, I think, Frank Jofo's favorite wrestler now, because he just choked out Cody Rhodes the other night. So we're big Taz fans here at Jofo in the Ring.
Taz is great. I first worked with Taz like 6 years ago or something like that. He used to have a radio show. And he had a thing where he would have like he would have different independent wrestlers come on and talk about stuff in independent wrestling. And I was doing sort of like an ROH report with him for a little while. So I've worked with him, and it was all a call-in show. But I've worked with Taz before, and I think sometimes because he maintains this like freshness to what he does, like it does feel like he's as professional as he is and as tenured as he is. It feels like he's like sitting back and giving his real live opinion. And I think because it feels so like live and raw, people forget how long he's been doing what he's doing. He was a commentator with WWE forever, with Impact. He's so good at like still feeling not new, but do you understand what I'm saying? Like he feels like it's like it doesn't feel polished in a way that it's boring, and you don't feel like you're getting like his real opinion. Like you still, as long as he's been doing this, you still feel like this is really what he thinks. This is his real opinion. And I think that connects with viewers who will sit back and watch something and they have a thought about it. And sometimes you have a thought and then like Taz verbalizes it, and it doesn't feel like manufactured. It doesn't feel like towing the line. It feels like it's Taz. And I think that's really difficult to do for so long, and to still feel like you have a connection with the viewers and you're kind of speaking what they're saying. I think that's really cool.
And I think you also worked with Tony Schiavone as well,
Mm-hmm.
calling the Women's Tag Team Cup. What was it like working with Tony?
So strange to think that I was getting to actually like sit next to Tony Schiavone and work with him as a wrestling fan. He's the best. He is so like, first of all, he's so giving and so encouraging with feedback and with just helping anyone out and guidance. But he's so, when you talk about someone who's like so good at what he does, he's so good at what he does, and he makes it seem like it's effortless, even though I know he works so hard and cares so much. Like he will do hours worth of commentary. He will do all the backstage interviewing. He does internet stand-ups. He does so much, and it feels so natural. And like I said, effortless, even though he works so hard. And it's motivating to just be around it. And he's so fun and so professional, and I'm so appreciative that I got to work with him even a little bit.
I'm sure you must have picked his brain too. Did he have any good stories for you?
So I did not so much, because I didn't really have time to do that, because again, he's so busy. Like he's constantly where he's there, he's constantly working. But just like, again, it's the sort of thing that like because my brother and I grew up as wrestling fans. It's the kind of thing that, like I'll text my brother. It's like, I just called a bunch of matches with Tony Schiavone. Pretty cool. And he's great. And I think sort of the whole environment that AEW has right now is just very encouraging and very positive and very supportive. And every person is a piece of that. And that's the main thing I got from it, from being a guest there, was that it was just like a super encouraging, positive environment. And Tony is obviously a huge part of that.
Well, that's great to hear, and I can see Emil a little quiet over there. I know a lot of people tune in to see him, so I want to turn things over to him. But just before doing that, Veda, one of the things I wanted to ask you was, could you maybe shed some light on how the whole AEW thing came about? Did they get in touch with you? Did you reach out to them? How did that come together?
Yeah, they were doing the women's tag team cup tournament, and for anyone who watched it, you know that they used a lot of unsigned and independent talent in the ring, and then also in my case as an announcer. So having someone who had spent years doing independent wrestling like me to sort of fill in the gaps for a lot of the talent, because again, I called the shows with Tony, and all the research in the world that you can do on someone is helpful, but if you can actually have someone who has wrestled them, or has, in my case, known some of these women for years, and it's not just the unsigned women that were in the tournament, but some of the ones that are with AEW full time. I've been friends with them for years, and I think that perspective was really important for the aim of the whole tournament, which was just sort of new talent, elevating new talent, something new for the AEW fans. And it helped everyone immensely on every level. So I was just approached to be part of that, and it was really, really cool.
So, I mean, it was nice getting to know a little bit about you. Emil, I want to talk with you. You and I, we go way back. I think we first met in 2005? Does that sound
something
about right?
like that?
I remember it was at MWF, which is the Montreal Wrestling Federation, which is no longer in operation, but a company that I came to actually own right now. But that was when we had first met back in 2005. You were just starting out, you and your brother, Felix. And I think it would have been at the first charity blast I did. I actually consider that my debut, because before that I had trained a bit, but not really wrestled regularly, and that was when I started. Met you that day. And we've probably been on hundreds of shows since then together.
Hundreds.
I think it's a fair assessment.
I would say so.
I feel
well.
we've probably been on some shows where we were the only people that got reactions on them.
So I consider my debut 2006, like January, because that's when I started taking bookings regularly. So that charity blast was actually my first match ever where I was myself and not some sort of jobber gimmick out there to get squashed.
So I think one time you did like a match as one of the ninjas. Was that?
That's right. Me and my brother were the fake hardcore ninjas in a match against Carl Schickett and Frank the Red, which is, I still have somewhere. I found it on an old hard drive and I watched it, and it's completely ridiculous just to see it. Man, so as I was listening to, we've been doing quite a few podcasts, Veda and I, and I've heard the story of how she come up more than once. And like, what shocks me every time is the complete contrast between how you and I, Jeremy, and Veda started. Like, you went to a proper wrestling school with a qualified trainer.
I had two trainers.
Two whole trainers in a structured environment. And then you had like a path to follow, and you had people to look up to. Where Jeremy and I, Jeremy, you were quasi-trained by Jacques Rougeau to do something similar to pro wrestling, except without punching or kicking, and where you only get to do one match dressed as a superhero.
Yep.
My training came from, so my brother when he was actually going to a wrestling school when I was too young to get in the ring, would kind of show me what he learned. And then my training.
And just to clarify, your brother, that was when he was training. Was that with Drew Onyx and Lufisto, or was that with Fred?
That was his first training with the IWS as a 16-year-old in a porn studio with Sami Zayn and Beef Wellington.
As one does.
True story.
As one does.
Basically, he would go to classes. He was 16, so he was allowed to train. I was 14. I was too young. He would take the classes and kind of show me what he learned at the school where we were training for Taekwondo. But then, like, eventually I got some more sort of training where we would basically go at MWF, set up the ring on the Friday, get to, play around in it for a couple hours, and then the show was on Saturday. And it's crazy how, like, kind of led us to the same place and the same realization of whether you have structure or not, that wrestling is really about the choices you make, and that no amount of structure or lack thereof or help will make up for, like your own initiative and your own willingness to go and put yourself out there and try and go beyond what is offered to you.
Mm-hmm. And I think you're a good example of a success story here in Quebec of someone who started maybe not at the bottom of the barrel, but started pretty low with MWF.
Yeah.
And managed to achieve so much here almost instantaneously. I mean, from the second you gained some traction with FLQ afterwards, I think that was around 2006 when they would have their shows every week, of which I was a part of too, and a few other people still in this business. People started taking notice, and then you became sort of like an underground attraction here, where you weren't necessarily being given the credit you deserve and the top billings, but people knew no matter who you'd be put up against, there'd be a certain quality to that match. Is that a fair assessment to say?
So I think it's fair in a lot of ways. However, like when you said, the hair stood up in the back of my neck when you said instantaneously, because like from where I started, what now takes a lot of wrestlers that I see like 2 years to accomplish took me probably about 10, given how far back I started. But yeah, no, I was in a very lucky position where I was, flippy and kicky, and I could do, despite not being as good of a wrestler as a lot of people that were on the shows I was on, I was able to do flashier things, and that helped a lot. Also, like the first many matches I had were just me wrestling my brother in singles or tag matches, and him, to his own detriment, always making me look fantastic.
One that comes to mind was the match that you guys did, I want to say it was at Club Soda, for the Spasm Festival. Do you remember that one, you and your brother?
I did. It's
fantastic.
Can we find that on YouTube?
Yes, it's actually it's on YouTube. Lex Lerman versus Mike Seidel, which was my name back then. It's on YouTube. It's heavily edited, so there's like the like almost the last third before the ending is cut out, which is a shame because I know there was a lot of cool stuff in that space. But yeah, that match is available online. So that match was one of the first times that he and I, well, just that I had wrestled in front of an audience that was like not wrestling fans. And it was really shocking to see. And it's like, that felt different, and that felt a lot more satisfying to wrestle in front of people that didn't know they could enjoy pro wrestling, right? And their idea of it was Hulk Hogan or Mad Dog Vachon, because we're in Quebec, or whomever, and actually present something that is different from what they know and that they enjoy, And just the fact that me and my brother were able to do that gave me a lot of confidence early on. The fact that we knew that what we present is not just interesting because it's pro wrestling and people like pro wrestling. It's fun. It's guys in tights hitting each other. No, what we do to an audience that isn't already biased is enjoyable.
Well, that's the thing about professional wrestling. Even if you don't like it and you go to a show, you're going to have fun. Like, I can remember I had an ex-girlfriend who didn't know about professional wrestling, didn't want to watch it or anything, dragged her to, I think it was like a WWE house show or whatever in town, and 45 minutes in, she's got a John Cena t-shirt on.
Yes.
So I was like,
great.
See, told you.
Well, one of the things that Emil and I talk about a lot is, I think it's what you like to call objective wrestling.
Yes.
Meaning that you can show this to anyone. This type of wrestling will get over unanimously, no matter who you show it with. And maybe you'd like to elaborate on that for our audience that doesn't know what that means.
Yeah. So I think that's a thing I've been thinking about a lot lately. Like, pro wrestling is subjective, and you'll hear that a lot, right? Like, it's not for everyone, or a certain style doesn't work. You hear it a lot about comedy wrestling, right? Like, this is just funny to that audience. It's subjective. It's okay. It's not actually good, which a lot of wrestling isn't. A lot of wrestling is only good when it's presented in front of a very specific audience in a very specific context. But when wrestling becomes actually objectively good, or when one becomes an objectively good pro wrestler, is usually when you've tried out your material in front of enough different audiences and different kinds of audiences in different places and with different expectations to be able to have it and know what you do and know that what you do is going to be objectively good no matter how you present it.
Well said.
Yeah, and that's pretty undeniable. I think it's what every pro wrestler should achieve to do, is to be able to have enough of an identity in terms of what they do to be able to get over with any audience, and that's the objectivity in it.
I think the way to apply that to like your actual career, if you're a pro wrestler or literally anyone else like listening to this, is to not let the being subjectively good go to your head. Like even in real fighting, that's the thing. Like I competed in Taekwondo for many years, and like if you can beat people in your dojo, that's subjectively good. You can win consistently in tournaments that's objectively good. Pro wrestling is the same way. If you can get over it at a certain place, good for you, but that does not mean that you're like objectively good and you've made it quite yet. There's usually still a ways to go and prove yourself after that.
I think you used the belt analogy. Like the white belt becomes the
Yes.
Was it the yellow belt or the blue belt?
Yellow belt, yes.
Maybe you'd like to explain that for the audience, how in Taekwondo the way that works.
Well, so martial arts belt system, you work your way up to black belt. But the quote I think you're trying to pull out of me is one of my favorites. Is from my Taekwondo coach, who said, "Green belt is the hardest belt in Taekwondo because that's when you start thinking you're good. Blue belt becomes a little bit easier because you realize you're not."
And applying that to wrestling, that there are a lot of wrestlers out there who maybe it was a green belt, you said? The first one before
Yes.
blue? Yeah, they're green belts that think they have all the tools, and that's just being subjectively good. And then once you reach the rank of blue belt, you maybe have to look at yourself and realize that you may not be at that level just yet where you are universally objectively good. It's great. This is what he and I talk about almost all the time. We've been training together back when it was allowed, before gyms were closed, and then all that nonsense. But these are the kinds of things. He's my favorite person to pick his brain and to learn. I learn something new every time I'm around him. I'm actually jealous of you, Veda, because you get to be around him all the time. So the wealth of knowledge you have there to gain is just tremendous and exponential. One of the things, Emil, that blows my mind is how many shows we did. And we're talking about literally hundreds of shows together. And that it took us so many years before we actually got in the ring and had a proper one-on-one match together. Isn't it just crazy that it probably took, 3-4 years before that happened?
That's true, and it's really a shame. Like I feel like if pro wrestling as a whole, but mostly pro wrestling here in Quebec was set up the way it should be, that match would have happened a lot earlier.
And a lot more often, I feel, too. It's crazy to me to think that, we weren't just two people that sat on opposite ends of the locker room. We were friends. We had carpools and travels together. We went to Ontario together. Me, you, your brother, Alex Silva was with us, John Fury. We had all those road trips together and everything. Yet here in our own market, we were rarely put in the ring together. And there was a lot of opportunities to do it. And I think the first time we ever did a one-on-one was on one of those Priest tapings. Which I doubt you can find that footage on YouTube, but
I don't know. Our guy's pretty good.
it would be quite a gem if you could find anything from those tapes. Do you know if any of that's online?
So I think there was a group of tapings they did at the torture chamber that ended up on YouTube somewhere, but most likely it's in a locked bin in the basement of a church.
Maybe it's been sent to the Vatican by now.
Dear God.
But that was actually the first time, and it was at MWF, which I know most of the tapings, they had done them at that time. I think they were doing them with NCW.
Right.
And we would participate, and I know the priest, if he actually was a priest, did think highly of the two of us. But this was the first person who decided to actually put us in the ring together. Oh, yeah. And it was before a show in front of maybe 6 or 7 people who were just volunteers working the canteen and the entire locker room. And it was a hell of a match. And it was just weird having done that. And I felt it went really, really well. And sitting back afterwards and being like, why weren't we doing this on the show?
Yeah, I was going to ask, when you guys got put in the ring together, was it just chemistry right away, or did you have to do a lot of planning beforehand? Or was it just
it was easy.
Let's do it in the ring?
So as I say, of course, I am, same for Jeremy, a lot better now than I was then. But I think the principle still applies, just of course on a different level. But when two people are good, there isn't that much like planning that needs to go into it. Where I like even back then, I knew what Jeremy did. Jeremy knew what I did, and I had seen enough of his matches to know how to make him look good, and him the same for me. So it kind of just comes together fairly easily.
And the fact that you guys are good friends too, I'm sure, just helps.
Yeah, no, I was ecstatic to get to finally do that. And it's a shame that, like I said, it was done in front of 6 people working the canteen and an entire locker room of wrestlers, which, okay, you know, it's going to win us a certain level of street cred with those guys, but whatever. It's like people who already knew what we bring to the table. It would have been nice to have done it in front of an audience. I think the first one we actually got in front of a somewhat decent audience was that one that we did at the festival in Cornwall. And I think that one, the pieces were in place really well with me working heel, you working babyface, beloved babyface by the people from that area who knew you, and even the people who just came because there was a festival and had never seen wrestling. That match, I think, is a hidden gem because it gave us a chance to, I think, work to our strengths.
And who won that match?
I think he did.
Oh.
Shooting Star Senton.
Yes, was that it?
Shooting Star Senton on the and we had a story there was because you didn't want to do it originally, and I had to talk you into it.
Yes.
I'd have to go back and watch it. Maybe it would come back to me, but I feel like I had to talk you into it because there was that time you did the Shooting Star Senton at MWF with Pat Gannett, where it was the double knockout finish. Still one of my favorite matches, that one. I don't know if there's footage of that we could maybe pull up, but I'll tell you guys about it. So he did this match with this guy, Pat Gannett, who was he had just come off losing the main title. And the finish was he hit this Shooting Star Senton on him. But if I'm not mistaken, I think he might have over-rotated a little.
Yes, just a little bit.
Yeah, smacked the back of his head, out cold. They count the 1, 2, 3. He's over, but he's out. And Gannett, if I'm not mistaken, I think he rolled out and he puked after that had happened. You might not have remembered that because you were out, but he rolled out and then he puked outside the ring. And then I was one of the first ones out, even though I think I was a heel, he was working babyface, to check on him. And then you were loopy. You were seeing stars. It was like me and your brother in there over top of you and everyone else. And yeah, Shooting Star Senton. Then somehow I talked you into doing it again, a year later.
So what's funny about that is my brother actually did the exact same thing. I think not long after, right? Instead of being a Shooting Star 450, it was a normal 450, but he over-rotated a little bit, hit his head on the way down, and got the same knockout finish over me as I did on Pat Gannett.
So it's genetic.
It is, yeah. It's in our blood. I don't think my mother or father, though, has ever knocked himself out doing a 450 off the top rope. But I'll have to.
And one thing I wanted to sneak in there, too, when you were talking about your brother training and then teaching you was what a lot of people probably don't know is your sister had also trained to be a wrestler at one point.
That's right. For a very brief period of time, she started training with my brother. She hung around for a little bit, but it didn't stick.
And also, I remember you guys telling me that there were other wrestlers in your family and generations back.
So, no, that is actually not true. There was the Baillargeon brothers, which is an old wrestling family. I don't know, we may have told people we're related for a while, but we are absolutely not. There is no relationship.
I remember one of those old maybe it was Paul LeDuc or someone like you had said
I
that
am 100% certain that Carl LeDuc was telling people that was a fact, that we were descendants from the Baillargeon brothers or something like that.
Not surprising. But yeah, I mean, many matches. And then the last match that we had, well, I guess even before that one, there was the one-on-one that we had at the CrossFit Center for IWS.
Yes.
I loved that match. I still say that one, January, already the match of the year. There was something about that match that we did, the setup to it, the ambiance, and then finally when we executed it, I'm very proud of that match. I would say if people would have to see one match of mine that was a good showcase of what I bring to the table, I would put that match of Emil and I as the match that I would say showcases pretty much what I'm capable of doing. Certainly not everything he's capable of doing, but that match for me was definitely a sentimental favorite.
So that match was almost 5 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 2015. It was right at the start, I think, of 2015.
Crazy.
That one, yeah.
So Veda, how long until you knock yourself out with a 450 splash? Now that you're part of the family.
So I can get almost all the way around on a 450, which sounds like it's about to turn bad, right?
Well, so the danger is over rotating.
Yeah, yeah. So I right now I under rotate. So I don't know. I just have to keep trying, I guess. When training can happen again.
Let's say 6 months.
Well, being with a Taekwondo background, you must have some decent home workouts to keep active and keep in shape, just in case everything opens back up again tomorrow.
Yeah, we've been doing some boxing though, because
Yes.
that's easier to fit in a small room. But I boxed a little bit as well. I have a boxing amateur record of 0-1, which is not very impressive, but at least I made it there. So
It's more impressive than the guy who's 0-0.
That's me.
Correct.
That's me.
Yeah. So now, obviously, at that point when we had that match, and then the subsequent match with Rey Mysterio and Jack Evans, that one I'm sure we can find the footage of that and pull that up while we're having this discussion. That was when things were really taking off for you. You had won the Best of the Best in CZW.
That's right.
You had, I think, you were about to go to Mexico also.
Yes.
And you were doing a lot of good work in Evolve at the same time too.
If I remember correctly, I had just come back from Mexico at this point.
Yeah.
When you had the match with Ray,
Yeah.
you just come back from Mexico.
Yeah. And, things were going great. And from there, you managed to broaden your horizons to go to Europe, Japan, pretty much everywhere, to the point where now, anyone who's anyone as a wrestling fan knows who you are. Maybe you could talk about the steps that got you there, because I know you and we talk a lot about how getting there and your path to getting there is not necessarily what most people think. So do you maybe want to shed some light on that for us?
Well, yeah, so, a lot of it is dumb luck. Honestly, I working hard in Quebec for, I think, so when I started going to wrestling in the US would have been 8 years or something into wrestling, and, consistently having decent matches. For the most part, wrestlers are a product of their environment and they just settled into wherever they fit. But I was very mindful of pushing just a little bit further past that. And after a while, I had started wrestling for C4, which then got me matches with Kevin Van Steen, now Owens, which those matches got him talking and opened a lot of doors for me. More directly, it was a match with Drew Gulak at Battle War that then got me into CZW. And then I started working with Biff Busick, who's now Oney Lorcan, a lot. And we had a lot of really, really good matches, so much so that he recommended me and got us a match together at PWG, which then my work at PWG, sadly, because I am so much better now than I was then, is what people know me for maybe the most, is that period of time, that maybe year and a half I spent working regularly for PWG, is really what got me noticed, and that allowed me to make one trip to England and also, get me noticed and go to Mexico and go to a few other places. Then after a little while, I was unable to go and wrestle in the United States, so I had to kind of this is when it would have been easy for me to just, settle and become the best in some region of Quebec and kind of just stay there and have my career die. But I decided that I wanted more. I decided that I wanted to travel. I did that for a couple of times. Being with Veda helped me stay motivated and keep the travel interesting, because as great as it sounds, it's a lot of work to travel so much. And it's a lot of planning, and it's a lot easier to have, someone to do it with. So again, I'm still lucky in that regard, but it's a lot of work, and it's taking it upon yourself to chase opportunities instead of waiting for them to come to you.
Mm-hmm. And plus you have a sidekick with you too. So it's kind of like you guys are always playing The Amazing Race.
Well, so for us, we don't, a lot of times when we go internationally, we go for longer trips, and it's kind of up on us to organize it all. So it is a lot of work, but it's work that we enjoy doing. And I kind of echo what you say, that I don't think I would enjoy doing. So when I'm in the States, obviously, and I'm by myself and I have to organize my whole career, It's exhausting and like agent for myself, and it's not nearly as much fun as doing it with him, even though it's even more work when we're doing it in like traveling around Europe. I have to keep like putting all these pieces together and figuring out like where we have to go next and how to arrange it. So it's work, but it's fun work. And I don't know that I would have nearly the motivation to do it either by myself in terms of like the undertaking that some of these like European trips will be.
Right.
And again, one of the things that we talk about is Canada and Canadians in general, how much of a more difficult path it is that we have to be able to make it somewhere, whether it be a top company in the United States or overseas in Europe. And you had said that it's your work in PWG that got you noticed universally. But the double-edged sword of that is that it's so difficult for us to be able to go and work legally in the United States, which is the place that gives us more notoriety. And Veda, you can feel free to chime in on this too, being that you are an American. Do you see that there are difficulties that we have here in Canada compared to someone who's wrestling in the United States and is readily able to be seen in a certain market and brought on board without the need for a long wait time for a work visa and all of the other bureaucracy that goes along with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I see too. I have a couple close friends who are Australian that deal with a similar thing where like in order for it to like the Australian wrestling scene is within the sort of like in Canada, there's a couple promotions that are truly excellent, and there's a handful of performers who are world-class performers, and it's difficult for, and then they just kind of feel like locked in, that they know that the only way that they're going to ever truly succeed, because most people's idea of success is say WWE or maybe now AEW or New Japan, the only way they're going to succeed is to kind of get out of that. And it's not as simple as just getting out. It's a matter of building exposure, and then, like you said, someone picking you up so that you're able to actually like have a full-time job. So I think now the good thing, well, obviously everything's like with the pandemic and American immigration and everything is a little bit different right at this moment. But I think one of the plus things has been kind of like I said with women's wrestling in general, expanding has been at least now there are lots more ways to kind of get yourself out there, be it through social media, be it through your matches being on a streaming service or sharing your matches on YouTube. I think that there's more of a chance now that you can get yourself seen and noticed, even if you can't leave your geographic area for whatever reason for right now. And I think that's been a huge plus for a lot of people, that there's a lot more opportunity to kind of put your work out there than there was maybe in the past. Like when you had to actually physically go to LA and physically be in Reseda in order for anyone to actually see you. I think now that there's at least a chance that because wrestling, the borders for viewing wrestling are a lot more blurred. Hopefully that means that there's going to be more opportunities in the future for people who maybe physically can't get out of where they are right now.
So I like a lot of people in the US when they start wrestling get very good because they aren't afraid to drive, 12 hours or 10 hours or however long in order to be able to do 3 shows in a weekend and get as much ring time as possible. Like, sadly, in Quebec, that's not really possible. In Canada, I know there are a lot of Canadian wrestlers who would happily do that, who would happily drive 20 hours, as we have done whenever we could, in order to be able to do just work as much as possible. Sadly, that's just not possible. Like, sometimes it doesn't work, or there just simply isn't that many shows because of the geographical restrictions in Canada and everything being so far apart compared to the United States. So yeah, I just want to echo what you're saying, and how like a good way to fix that, or at least help, is just let people get more work, and hopefully in the way of like tapings and all that, that would help a lot. I have been since the beginning of the year up until the lockdown, which is not a lockdown apparently, but regardless, that's another issue. I've been teaching at the IWS school, and something I before the pandemic even started, something I was really that was important to me and I wanted to do was basically, I called it mock shows. Right? The show, whoever wants to come gets to wrestle, except there's no audience. It's just film for viewing purposes and there for learning purposes. the two main goals of that were to just for the IWS students to not have to wait and search so hard for bookings in order to get some actual matches in, and to also give everyone in Quebec that was interested enough to come just a place to wrestle. Even if there's no audience, it doesn't matter. It's still a full match that you'll get to do, and you'll still get to better yourself. And I'm hoping out of the pandemic that will come just more opportunities for people to wrestle. Tapings, of course, are an easier way to achieve that. So yeah, I think that's important.
You see, like you and I had talked about, and the way I see it is kind of like Canada is this untapped oil reserve, whereas in the States you have WWE, AEW grabbing the first cut of guys. So, you know, someone is getting over, they're building a name, people are talking about him, we're going to grab him, make him one of ours. So then you have the other companies, the Ring of Honors, the Impact, whatever it may be, grabbing, you know, their set of guys, the second tier, the third tier. So it's like they're all drilling for oil over there. Then you got NXT UK, and they're bringing in the guys from the UK, from Europe, who, you know, the visibility is there. Whereas here in Canada, and maybe in Australia, like Veda had mentioned, you know, you have potential main eventers, potential top tier guys that are untapped because no one is looking here to get guys that maybe a WWE or an AEW aren't looking at, but these other tiered companies could then go and say, hey, we're going to take this guy, and this guy could be our top guy. You know, it's just, it blows my mind that with all the talent that we have from BC all the way out to Nova Scotia, that there aren't more Canadians getting signed to bigger companies because people just aren't looking here. And, you know, hopefully we can do something, whether it's through spoken word like this or through what we do in the ring, to put attention on the various scenes here in Canada to get more Canadians into those top spots where they rightfully should be.
And it's not like we don't have proof that Quebec doesn't produce great wrestlers. I mean, we've got Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, two of the biggest stars in the WWE right now.
Yeah, and all to his point, not to cut you off, Kyle, but all to his point that it's not their work in Canada that got them where they are, and I'm sure Bailey will agree. It's what they did in the U.S., in PWG, in places like that that we don't have access to go to perform on that stage and rub shoulders with those people who can put in the word to open the door to get us to where we want to go.
But that's the thing, though. You'd think they'd see those two and then be like, these two are really good. They're from Montreal. I wonder what else Montreal has. You'd think that would help cast somewhat of a light on Montreal independent wrestling, but apparently not.
You'd think.
Yeah. I mean, common sense, but I don't know. I don't run the WWE or the bigger companies, so.
Well, speaking of going places and getting signed, to me, there's no doubt that there are definitely big things in your future. In fact, in both your futures. Right now, you know, you still have a bit of time left before the doors to the United States open for you. But I don't doubt that this guy right here, my good friend Mike Bailey, you'll be seeing him somewhere, unless the entire wrestling universe has suddenly gotten a lobotomy and doesn't recognize talent anymore. But do you maybe have somewhere that you're leaning towards or that you'd see yourself being a good fit, Emil?
Yeah. The important thing is that we're both happy to continue to do what we're doing, just being independent and traveling, and that's worked out very well for us. Very happy working for DDT in Japan. But again, our goal is to wrestle in front of the biggest audiences possible and be as quote unquote successful as is possible. And we're not close to any like opportunities that could arise. It's just hard to, you know, pick or say I'd rather be somewhere where every option has so many good sides, whether it be WWE or AEW or Impact or Ring of Honor or MLW. They all sound great right now.
And you had done a match with Ring of Honor not too long ago, just before the pandemic hit, got rave reviews. That could be a great place for you in the future. Yeah. Which I'd like to also point out, I think they only have one other Canadian on their roster, so that'd be a pretty good addition.
So they got room for more then.
Definitely.
Yeah. I don't know if the match is available. It's just over a year ago. I wrestled Flamita in Bolton for Honor United, and that was great. I mean, I loved working for them. I had a great experience, and I wouldn't be opposed to going back at all.
I mean, I just watched you wrestle Keith Lee the other day for like 27 minutes, and this hell of a match, by the way. And I'm thanks for showing up. I'm glad you're okay, because I watched you take one hell of a goddamn splash from that guy. But I could literally watch you wrestle him every day, every week for the next like 2 years. if that's where you want it to go. Because Jesus Christ, if for everybody who's watching this, if you haven't seen it, get on YouTube right now and check that match out. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Appreciate
You're very
that.
welcome. No problem at all.
But see, that's the thing. I'd love a rematch with Keith Lee. I think we had a great match, but I also had a great match with Kenny Omega a long time ago in PWG, and I would love to do that over again. I mean, I've had a great match with Walter, who was from Germany and is NXT UK champion. I'd love to have a rematch with him as well.
Well,
Yeah, and on a much bigger stage, under brighter lights.
Yes,
A better payday.
under William Regal,
hopefully.
friend of the show.
You trying to push my buttons?
Me, never. I would never do that.
All right, well, switching gears, the big news that came out about you guys not too long ago, which I should congratulate you guys right from the get-go, is on the engagement. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I guess the big question is, have you guys set a wedding date yet?
No. So we have like not a unique situation, but a particular situation where obviously a lot of the concerns for us are legal and immigration related. So for us, it's more based on like what will be best in terms of like our future, where we want to live in the future, and like legal issues in the future. So we're kind of working on that end of it before we figure anything else out. Like just something as simple as like, is it better to be legally married in one country versus another? That sort of thing. So it's less like a when and more like a what's going to work best.
Yeah. Also, which venue will be best equipped to handle the greatest wrestle wedding the world has ever seen.
And am I in line to be one of the groomsmen?
If you can win the best man battle royal, you're in.
Ooh, I like the sound of that. Yeah. And so, is there a cute story of how the proposal came about? Is it anything you might want to share with the viewers?
Well, we hadn't seen each other in 9 months, and I had planned to do this engagement a while ago, but as soon as she arrived, the first thing I did is got on one knee and asked her to marry me.
Wow.
Yeah, because I had to. So when I drove. I didn't fly. I drove here, and it's about a 7-hour drive or so without the border. And the mystery is always like, how long will it take at the border? And also, once I cross the border, I don't have cell service any longer. So there's always like a mystery period of like, okay, I'm getting to the border. Love you. Phone goes off. And then we know approximately what time I'll arrive, which should be another like 45 minutes or so. And so the whole thing with this was like, okay, here's where I'm going in. I don't know how long it's going to take. It ended up taking about an hour and a half, I want to say, because there was an additional round of questioning and I had to go into an interview and that sort of thing. There's been times where I was detained and it took me like many, many hours and you had no idea where I was. And normally what I will do is at least stop at like a Tim Hortons along the way and use the Wi-Fi and send him a text. But I couldn't do that this time at all because the rule is once you get over the border, you're meant to go right to your place of quarantine in your personal vehicle and not interact with anyone. So I had to just drive right there. And I believe you were waiting outdoors or waiting at the door for a long, like you had no idea when I was going to show up.
The flowers in the
Big
ring,
plans.
and I was going to wait. Yep.
So you just had to wait.
Because I remember we had trained maybe a week, not even a week before that, and even I was included in that he was going to do that. I learned about it through Twitter.
Oh. I mean, it's a big moment.
Oh, yeah,
It's got to
definitely.
keep it under wraps. You can't let the dirt sheets find out.
Well, actually, I think I saw the dirt sheets reported wrong. They had said that you guys got married, and that was a.
Which we did not.
That's right. And it was pretty clear. It's shocking how like it's hard to imagine how wrong every single news story is until you're part of one.
Yep. And like I honestly, so for me, if like going to the courthouse and just getting married right away is what the best option was, I'm all for that. I don't like attention or any of this at all.
I'm thinking
You're
Bell's.
in the right business, clearly.
Not at all. Yeah, so me as like a public persona for what I do for work versus me like on a personal level, very different. I would be all for that, but we did not get married because we do want to like establish an engagement period, and like we have to have everything kind of like on the up and up and make it look, because it is real.
Yeah.
But yeah, so no, if it was up to me, we would get married. We would have gotten married a year ago, and nobody would have ever known about it. Was my plan.
But now you can have a bridesmaid battle royal to complement the groomsmen battle royal.
Of course.
Yay!
Yay!
You know, one interesting fact about this duo, and I talk about my matches with Mike Bailey quite a bit, but it's funny that Veda and I have actually wrestled each other too. Not a lot of people know that one. Maybe you could find that clip online there, Mr. Producer.
It was like a weird six-way.
It was the six-way, yeah, and I don't think we were originally supposed to be in it. That was like a last-second change. I think
it was like you, me, DJ Z, Frank Milano.
No, Milano wasn't in it.
Was it not Frank Milano? Facade was definitely in it.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember who else. It was like a weird collection of
I remember
humans.
just like we couldn't even all get together for that match. Like there was
Kobe
like
Durst.
Yeah,
Kobe Durst. His ankle was like shattered.
I feel half the match was banged up, and we were like, it was just me, you, and Facade. I think we're the only ones who were healthy going into that,
Yeah.
and then we couldn't find each other. But we actually did a few things in there. I remember that we did that opening where you took out everybody, and then I gave you a boot.
Yeah.
And I think you gave me a cutter at one point too.
Yep.
What's funny about that is that for that show, which I think was also at Club Soda.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah.
No, that was.
No. Is it the
Or was it
Tellus?
Metropolis?
Mtellus.
Is it Mtellus?
Yeah.
Formerly Metropolis. Yeah.
I had about 60 friends of mine, of which none of them were you guys. Shame. Who came to that show, and friends, coworkers, all of that. And they were just in shock by seeing me, seeing a man, but like me, who they know and interact with every day, attack Veda in the match. Which is funny because I don't do a lot of intergender matches. It just so happens when it does. But I had a lot of fun working with you, and I know that you guys had done a lot of intergender matches, and I think we were even supposed to have one at XZW. Jason had wanted Jessica and I to work with you two. That was for the Jib Fest, and it didn't end up happening, unfortunately. I think that would have been a hell of a match if we'd have done it. But, I mean, you guys have done a lot of intergender matches, and, you know, now it's becoming pretty popular, even in WWE with their Mixed Match Challenge and in a lot of places. Are those a lot of fun for you guys?
I mean, so that's just normal for me, wrestling, ever since I started. But I've kind of just wrestled whoever always. Especially because I did so much traveling early on. Oftentimes there just like wasn't a woman for me to wrestle, so I just wrestled whoever. I was in a tag team with Greg Iron for a long time back in Ohio, and then we had a whole feud and like a bloody cage match, and so that's kind of just always been my normal. You hadn't done as much of it until semi recently,
Right.
But now we've been in a regular tag team, teaming in Europe and teaming a little bit here in Canada. And I wish we could get back to that right now because it's really the most fun I have in wrestling.
So we actually have the clip of your guys' match that we're going to play right now. So if you want to just take us through what's happening in the ring.
Isn't it? DJ Z.
Who's that on the Sheldon
That's,
G.
Yes.
Sheldon,
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so I guess we're working together here, which is pretty uncharacteristic because, you know, I don't usually get along with people. There's a clothesline electric chair.
Very good.
Doomsday device.
Yeah. Oh, and here's the spot. Yeah, this made all my friends freak out. When she gives me the cutter.
Oh!
I just remember selling a lot of merch that night. That was a good merch night.
Probably all his
Good
friends that
merch
bought your stuff.
Good merch night.
Oh, and then the pile driver, yeah.
Oh,
Forgot about
the Dino pile driver.
Oh!
There we go.
How long did you have the abs ready before that?
Jesus. And he kicks out.
That is a beautiful setup, I must say.
Yeah, I've used that pile driver onto a guy a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's DJ Z. So I think he had done a match the night before. He was pretty banged up.
Boom.
Yeah, there's a good old ass bump in the corner. Yeah.
Oh. Jesus. See, and for anybody watching that doesn't watch independent wrestling, look at this right here.
Yeah, well,
that's better than half the shit you'll see on WWE.
Yeah, this was Facade being way too close on that 450, but I digress.
And he gets the win. Yeah. After taking a pile driver on his stomach, he takes the win. Wow.
Yeah, so that was the extent of me working with Veda. Again, a lot of fun. Maybe it'll happen again someday. Maybe that mixed tag match will happen at some point when wrestling comes back here in Quebec.
Yeah, and
hopefully soon.
When we take bookings on the same show, we push to tag a lot just because we have so much fun with it, to the point where we'll be like, well, if you need singles matches, like we'll do those, but we also like a tag match, please. Mostly just because it's fun. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, I always say that, I've had a bunch of tag team partners, but with the few mixed tags I've done with Jessica, like she's by far the best partner, the one I have the most chemistry with. So, seeing the chemistry you guys have had, I've seen a few of the mixed tags you've done. I really think that'd be a hell of a match. I don't think there'd be another duo of people that could top that match with the chemistry I know I have with Emil. And I definitely think you guys would work really well together too.
Thank you. We even when we're not teaming together, but we're on a show, like every match I have, there's at least one, or if not more, ideas that have come directly from Veda that I'm doing in the match. So like, even when we're not physically in the same match, we're sort of always teaming together. So when we have a tag match, like,
it just fits together because we kind of put our matches together, or singles matches together, even if we're in like different places or not even on the same show. We're like texting each other what we're doing, what we're putting together, and asking for ideas. So when we actually get to work together, it comes together really easily because we kind of have the same mindset.
And do you think that there might be a bit of a push back on mixed tag matches? I know that Lance Storm was very outspoken online. He had said, like, maybe we should stop them now because of all the speaking out that's going on. Do you think maybe when wrestling comes back full time, there might be some blowback from that, or?
No, and I think honestly, to like in any way equate any part of professional wrestling with violence or assault, in terms of like real violence and real assault, is such a disservice and disrespectful to survivors. It's just not like that. That equation just doesn't work for me, and it makes my skin crawl. Wrestling is not real. It's fake. It's a performance. And
how dare you?
So for me, all wrestling is just wrestling, and it doesn't matter who I'm in the ring with. And it doesn't matter, like that part of it is just part of the match. Because again, it's not a real fight. If I wanted to be in a real fight, I would do real fighting, and I don't want to be. That's why I do professional wrestling. It's fake. It's a performance. It is scripted entertainment that I have a lot of fun putting together and like writing the script for in each individual match. But it is not real violence. It is not. And to equate it with that at all, be it because of the gender involved or because of the relationships of the people involved, I think to me is so, again, like I said, so off base and so disrespectful and so minimizing to survivors of actual assault and actual violence. It's just not a thing for me at all.
Yes, and I think in the same way that like, it's a shame for Canadian wrestlers to have opportunity being limited by border. It's even more ridiculous to want to limit opportunities based off of gender and only allow women, because the way wrestling is right now, there's a lot less women who do it than men, obviously. But to want to try to limit all the women to only wrestling each other and not allow everyone to wrestle with everyone and learn from everyone and get better that way.
And it's also, I mean, it's to look at it also that perspective. I don't particularly even like the term intergender because, again, it's usually when you're saying intergender, you're talking about man versus woman, which is this idea of binary gender that I'm not to go into here, don't personally subscribe to anyway. And I think that it's an erasure of so many people and so many people who are pro wrestlers right now who don't fit into that binary. And so the idea that like why can't wrestling just be wrestling, and whoever is the performer and whoever is the athlete just is who they are, and they're wrestling another performer or another athlete who is who they are, and that's the extent of it. I think is maybe the direction we need to go, and that's sort of where I'm pushing actively.
And now another thing I'd want to talk about in talking about people and different people having access to wrestling and whatnot is the work that you've been doing, Emil, at the IWS dojo. You've been training there, men and women. There was actually that first pod when we did the tapings for RDS, which consisted entirely of students. And I remember you telling me it had gone fantastic. I think some of those matches finally aired on Fight Network, and they were pretty good. So maybe you could walk us through that, how you've been keeping yourself busy with the school, and to maybe some of the viewers out there who are thinking about getting into wrestling and why that would be a better option for them than some of the other places out there currently in Quebec.
Well, I mean, I have a very different approach to wrestling than a lot of people do. Because, and it's not by lack of respect to the art form of professional wrestling, it's completely the opposite. Why I don't think it's sacred. I don't believe in any sort of like ridiculous rule book that would go against making the most progress possible. I want wrestlers to this sounds so stupid, but I want wrestlers to be good at wrestling. I want them to get concrete experience in the ring, and I want them to practice their matches and work on their strengths rather than harping on people's weaknesses. And I think something a lot of wrestling schools that I've seen around the world do not do is allow people to be themselves. Right. And everyone has different strengths. And if you try to put everyone into the same mold, a lot of people just will not fit. And then they will be under the impression that pro wrestling is just not for them, when really all they needed to do all along was just focus on their strengths. And that's something I see a lot. And that's something I want to work really hard to better.
And you seem to be in a great place to be able to do that. So that's fantastic. So I have a question for the both of you now.
Yes.
Tomorrow, COVID's gone, borders are open, promoter calls the both of you. You can wrestle whoever you want. Living or dead, it doesn't matter. You get one match tomorrow. Who is it with?
You have an answer?
Give your answer.
No, you give yours.
We might have the same
You
answer.
can answer that too as well.
No, it's not
I have
about me.
two answers. I have my overall, what would be best for me overall as a performer and a person, like a person who wants to be successful in wrestling. I guess the answer would be like Sasha Banks, maybe. That'd be my, because she's doing great. She's on TV. That'd be great for me. Honestly, I mean, I would really, I say this all the time, like before I'm done wrestling, I really would like to have another match with you. Like not tagging one, like a singles match. We had one quite a while ago. I would like to do that. So I don't know. I might want to check that off the list if someone gave me an option. But I don't know. I don't really have anyone that I like in particular want to work with, because I think there's unique challenges with every single person. But also, if you're like, you can choose anyone, there's got to be someone that's on TV, right?
Right. Yeah. My main answer is John Cena to this question.
That's a good answer.
Right? If you're wrestling John Cena, then things are definitely going
We're
well.
doing great.
Yeah, no kidding.
In all earnest, though, like right now, Kenny Omega has been pushing boundaries and having the best matches. Like that, like stylistic differences aside and eras aside, the best wrestling matches that have ever been, he made them. So that's I don't think it gets much better than that. But definitely looking forward to having another match with you, Veda.
Yes, that's my name in
Can have it at
real
the
life. We can't. No, it's a no.
Okay.
So at the wedding, are you guys going to come out to your theme music, or are you going to go
No.
with the traditional wedding song?
Oh, terrible.
No, we'll have a live band play us out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you got a live rendition of Brass Monkey. Pretty good.
I've always wanted to do the Shawn Michaels thing where you come down on the harness, but
We'll get Disturbed and Ed Sheeran to play us out.
there you go.
This is why I just want to like sign the papers, and then you can have whatever party you want later.
Okay.
It's fine.
Good and fun. My best friend got married in Vegas, and it was awesome.
Cool.
Bell Center.
It was
Olympic
sweet.
Stadium or Bell Center?
It was 15 people. It was sick. It was great. We went to dinner. Fun. Super perfect. Perfect scenario.
So I'm getting the signal to wrap this up, but I also really don't care because this is my show, and with that said, before
Cut his mic.
you try cutting my mic. So, but before we do that, we can't be disrespectful to our guests here.
Oh,
we
absolutely
got to
not.
give them a chance to talk about where people can follow them, anything they got to plug. So, I mean, guys.
And we're going to be posting links for it too.
Yeah,
So.
the floor is yours.
So I don't just my Twitter really is, which is at It's Veda Time. Everything goes on my Twitter first.
Great name, by the way. I had to comment on that. I followed you on Twitter, and I saw it, and I was just like, "This is great. It's fun."
But pretty much everything like gets posted on my Twitter first. So anything I'm doing, you would see through there. I don't have like a. Do people have websites anymore? I don't have anything like that.
No. Like our Twitters and Instagrams. I'm at Speedball Bailey on both. However, the best thing you can do if you want to help us out or you listen to this podcast and enjoyed it is go on YouTube and find some of our matches. I know we both have some good ones on there. We have some matches together. If you want to find just, I think, a good example of our me and you versus Sean Custom and Zaya
Is
Brookside.
that on there?
That's on YouTube.
That was fun.
Go and find that. Go and find matches like that. Go and look at our stuff and then share it. If you enjoy it, please share it on your Facebooks and your Twitters and let your friends know that wrestling is fun and you enjoy it. And you saw these two people and enjoyed their work. And then, tell a friend. And then when wrestling comes back, we'll bring them along and they'll see that it's more than just Hulk Hogan.
Well, now that you've been on Jofo in the ring, people are going to be fed up of seeing you.
Great.
We're going to be pushing you guys everywhere now.
So why are people not fed up of seeing you?
Oh, because I'm the star
You're
of the
always
show.
on here.
Why do you think we had to get rid of Frank? And Jeremy, where can we find you as well?
I'm on Twitter as well, at Jeremy Prophet, spelt exactly the same way that it is when I'm in the ring. So, you can feel free to find me on there, follow me on there. I gotta keep up with the Joneses here. You guys all got more followers than me. So, hey, if you guys want to direct some traffic my way, I'll be happy to have some followers who want to see me, tweet stupid stuff.
And as always, you can find Jofo in the ring on literally everything. I think we're on Instagram, Facebook, fucking TikTok now, Twitter, all over the place. I want to thank you guys both for joining us. It's been a great time. It was awesome researching you guys because you get to sit around and watch wrestling and read about wrestling. What's better than that?
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having us.
You are. Thank you for coming.
Oh, it was definitely a pleasure having you on. Emil, hopefully we'll get to train together when gyms open up again, or maybe we could do some virtual training. That's now a thing.
Maybe a cinematic match?
That was, I didn't even tell him about that. That was actually offered to us. Yeah, maybe we'll talk about it another time. But yeah, that was actually an offer from a company here in Quebec. Not one of the bigger ones, one of the smaller ones, but they wanted he and I, based off of seeing us training together. They said they'd love to have a cinematic match. Who knows what the future holds?
I'd pay to see that.
Yeah, they would too. It was a pretty good offer. But yeah, and Veda, I mean, if you're still here, do you plan on being here for a lot longer, or are you going back soon?
So I can be here right now until January 5th. That's when my clearance is until. And then I can come back subsequently from that. I just have to quarantine every time. So for the next 6 months is the way the waiver works. So I do intend to be here till January unless I have to leave for some work related reason. But right now I'm kind of set to be here till January. And then after that, again, depending on work related issues, I'll probably be back, but I don't know when. And again, I have to do the quarantine every time. So that's why it's less convenient. I can't just come back in between shows or whatever. So I don't know. We'll see.
Well, who knows? If the stars align and this whole virus thing finally gets under control and people start getting vaccinated, then we can all be one big happy family again.
And on that note, we're going to get out of here. Me and Jeremy are going to hit the gym. We're going to do some chest today. So on that note, thank you guys again for coming. And remember, wrestling is life.